Welcome to the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama, and Anubis, who's staring at me. We have an op-ed in the New York Times by a Dr. Christina Cross, black lady who is in the sociology department in Harvard University. What is her paper called? The Myth of the Two-Parent Home. And she says, new research indicates that access to resources more than family structure matters for black kids' success. Her argument, or her premise, is basically that black people are aliens, I'm paraphrasing, and therefore black people don't need a two-parent home like white people and Mexican people and Asian people and Italian people and Native Americans, West Indies. But black Americans, no. Two parents, not necessary. Everybody. Maybe she meant Chicago? I don't know what she meant. So let's get on to her research. It is a near truism that the best family structure to raise a child in is a two-parent family. We're repeatedly told by policymakers, social commentators, religious leaders, and a host of others. Dr. Cross is the host of others. Does that include medical doctors, trial psychologists, actual psychologists? She was putting this forward to get her PhD, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that part. I have feelers already, but I didn't take the time to do it. I have feelers put out to see if she is being investigated for plagiarism, being investigated for just making up stuff. Anyway, society routinely blames family structure that deviate from this model for many of its problems. Hold on, let me dissect that sentence. Society routinely blames family structures that deviate from this model for many of its problems. First of all, the pronouns are all over the place, which is bad writing. It's, are you referring to it's as in the problem of the single mom? Is it's the problem of society? Or is it's the problem of the criminal behavior of children who are raised by single moms? It's really nebulous. I have no idea who you're talking about. She continues, just think about the last time you heard someone use the term broken home or single parent household to explain the misbehavior or misfortune of a person in your social circle. Hold on. So you're saying people trying to explain why somebody is a mass murderer is just flippantly blaming single moms? They just pulled that out of their hat and just said, oh, single moms. What do you expect? Single mom. Or Miss Cross. I don't know if you're a doctor yet, because the actual signature says just Christina Cross. It didn't say Dr. Christina. Right. Okay. So no, I'm not trying to insult her. I'm trying to say exactly who she is. Or could it possibly be that society, sociologists, child psychologists, the penal system have all told you that 90% of the people in jail are the product of a single mom? Incontrovertible fact. It's not even 30%. It's not even 50%. It's 90%. Now, with that stat all by itself, is it possible that they might, just might have some sort of, I did a whole bunch of research on this, but what if common knowledge is wrong? Common knowledge? Common knowledge. So, you're dismissing judges, police, entire legal systems, entire social sciences completely, psychology, psychiatrist, common knowledge. What if common knowledge is wrong? Especially about a group whose family structures have long been used to explain their social and economic disadvantages Black Americans. Oh, hold on, Miss Cross. Why do I have the hiccups? Hold on, Miss Cross. You're trying to tell us that Black people have always had these problems and Black people have always had single moms. Is this what you're trying to tell us? Because I just so happen to be one of the people who actually does research and in particular, I do research about Black Americans. Okay, so I'm not that old, right? In my lifetime, the two-parent household has broken down. So we're not talking about hundreds and thousands of years, sweetheart. In the 1960s, Black people were 90% married with children. Or let me reverse that. 90% of the children in the United States who were Black came from 90% two-parent households. Did I say that correctly that time? Yeah, I said it correctly that time. Black people were more married than any other group in the United States. Go look that up. Children coming from the Black community, 90% of them had two parents in the home. We're talking mother and father. We're not talking about mom and grandma. We're talking about mother and father married in a super duper Christian household with a picture of Jesus on one side and Martin Luther King on the other side. And that's a whole different other story. But the children, 90% of them came from a two-parent household. Black people. That's not within my lifetime, but it's pretty close to it. I mean, maybe 20 years. 20 years from my birth. That ain't no long time, first of all. So your entire premise that Black people have been come from single moms for such a long time is a lie. Let's not even pretend to placate you or patronize you. It is a lie that Black people have a long history of single moms. Didn't happen. Not only that, let's not even go to the 60s. You want to go further back than that? Because I can go further back than that. Upon the emancipation of African slaves within the United States, African male men walked through entire states to go find their wife that they had been separated from and their children. Walk through entire states. Let me ask you, everybody listening, if that was a common thing, a common behavior, let me ask you if that was so common that was a thing, that it came through the histories and something that people reported, that white people even reported. Where are you going? I'm going to go find my wife. I'm free. I'm going to go find my wife. That, by definition, means that the family structure was important to Black people, was important to Africans. Let's go even further back than that, because you know my knowledge is long lasting. In Africa, the man and the woman sit side by side. None of this whole men and women are equal. No, they are different aspects of everything. Man has a completely different aspect. Woman has a completely different aspect. But in Africa, they were seen as to be sitting side by side. Not equal, but sitting side by side. Not the same thing, but sitting side by side. One's the female aspect, one is the male aspect. And that's throughout the entire history of Africa. You can find that in every culture, every country, every empire, everything. That's the nature of Africa. When we get into the European nations, then it becomes this whole men are the most important, blah, 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 blah. Let's not even talk about women. But in Africa, they always talked about women along with the men. So no, Black people don't have a history of single moms. Let's continue on. Research I recently conducted. Hold on the relationship between family structure and the children's education throws conventional wisdom, quote unquote, she quotes it, wisdom into serious question. Black Americans have the highest rate of single parenthood and non-marital births in the country. That's a lie. Time out. That's a lie. We don't. And in fact, the birth rates of black women and of black teens has fallen off a cliff, and now black teen pregnancies, I'm not talking about abortions or nothing like that. I'm talking about pregnancies, fell off a cliff, and now it is the lowest group out of all the groups. So you're lying. I don't know how you didn't do any other look at anybody else's research, and I'm gonna think that maybe you were trying to prove a point. Then you started taking surveys, and because you have your own bias, that then your research showed you to be right. Oh, that's how that works. That's always how that works. Let me ask you, anybody listening, if you think David Duke went out and did a survey of black people doing anything, do you think the survey would ever turn out to be anything other than what David Duke thought it was going to be in the first place? Ding, ding, ding. You're correct. It's always going to turn out how David Duke probably thought in the first place. No matter who was in the survey, right? In this divergence from two-parent family ideal is routinely implicated the lower levels of educational attainment and higher rates of poverty and unemployment within the black community. Ironically, in a study I recently published in the Journal of Marriage and Family, I found that living apart from a biological parent does not carry the same cost for black youths as for their white peers, and being raised in a two-parent family is not equally beneficial. So let me break down what she just said. She just said that white people are better. That's what she just said. White people are better. It doesn't matter if you have mom and dad at your house. Doesn't matter that your mom is ratchet. White people are better. She said that it doesn't even benefit you if you have a mom and dad at home if you're black. She's black, by the way. I'm black, by the way, in case people were confused. She continues, in fact, using over 30 years of national data from the panel study of income dynamics, I tracked children's households living arrangements from birth to adulthood, and I demonstrate that family structure has a weaker relationship to the educational success of black adolescents than in of white adolescents. Lie, lie, lie. Because I just so happened to go into a PhD program for political science, and I actually tracked this myself. I got the scholarship, by the way, but I didn't get my PhD in political science, which a part of for that program was a ton of history and a ton of internal politics in the United States. And was I published? No, I didn't win the publication, but I did present it to the Political Science Institute of America. So there you go. And yes, I did find some things that black people did that most other groups did not do. What was that? Vote, even if they're poor. Black people vote even if they're poor. Unlike other groups who do not vote if they're poor. It just doesn't happen. So, the black people and voting have a very long history, and having it very like one of the number one aspects. However, in all of that data and all of that research, it is a complete lie and fabrication that you found over 30 years of national data suggesting that family structure has a weaker relationship in the black community. How do we know this? Because we look over the past 60 years of democratic control of the black community, and what happened? The family structure was destroyed, and the instance of incarceration went up. Now, in the past 30 to 40 years, all crime has completely dropped like off a cliff, but for some reason there's still millions of people in jail. Oh, I wonder why that happens. That's crazy. All of the actual criminal data is telling you that crime is at an all-time low. Women who are listening, that means that all of the crimes about men and women are at an all-time low. Fell off of a cliff. A woman in the United States now is the safest that a woman has ever been in the history of the planet. So all of these women talking about, oh my God, there's all these crimes happening to women and women are just so... No, that's a complete lie. All the data shows that crime fell off a cliff. Police have to make up stories to get funding. They literally have to make up stories to get funding. Case in point, we go to Florida. They told you about the color gang, the tattoo gang. I don't know if I can't. I did a just look up Shakaama and gang. Anyway, they did a thing where they made up a story about a gang, and then they said, "Oh, it's the most dangerous gang." So then I did a little bit of research. Oh, they even had that gang on the History Channel. And the History Channel reporter went into the deep heart of this quote-unquote gang, white boy, with a bunch of white crews, with a bunch of expensive cameras, went into the heart of this quote-unquote gang, and then they made their whole thing, oh, it's the most dangerous gang, oh, it's so terrible. So then I actually contacted a couple of people in Florida, and I contacted people who lived in that town, and the police had a whole task force. They got millions of dollars to get tanks and vests and riot gear and all this sort of stuff, right? Because of the story they made up about the gang. The gang happened to be like a singing group. They would sit on porches and they would sing like what do you call the quartet, barbershop quartet? They would literally sing on the porch. And when they were asked why they're in a gang, they said, oh, we're just fellas hanging around. Have you ever done anything? No. And I said, not only that, never been arrested. The Mexican gang down the way is far more dangerous. And this is where the mafia used to be. Mafia, you can't hold a candle to what the mafia used to do in this particular area of Florida. The mafia used to control it. The police fabricated a complete story about a gang to get millions of dollars for a special task force. And then when they asked certain police in the department, they said, all of those task force people sit around and do nothing because there's absolutely nothing to do. They made up this story to get millions of dollars from taxpayers. And this is during the Obama administration. And FEMA and Department of Homeland Security was very happy to give them millions of dollars in equipment for this supposed task force, and they literally sit around and do nothing. So the idea that crime is such a thing that you have to you have to do all of this special stuff for is a complete lie. Also, it is the case that black men who come from a mother and dad household are something like 10 times likely to not be in trouble with the police, not be in trouble with any sort of investigation, not be in the penal system whatsoever, not be in any sort of legal trouble. So let's compare that. She's trying to compare money. But let me tell you this. She goes into talking about children who are in single mom homes versus two-parent homes are only... the people in two-parent homes are still 12% likely to be poor, to live in poverty, that the children are 12% likely to be in poverty. Okay, well, here's the deal. That's a lie. And not only that, the family, the economics of just two poor people, black or whatever, getting married and going into the future almost overnight removes poverty off of their list of things to be worried about. It's almost a magical thing that a black man and a black woman marry, and it's almost magical. Overnight, they become instantly not poor anymore. And they don't quite get there, they approach being as wealthy as single white men. There is still a wealth gap, but they approach that, right? Single white men come under still being anywhere near as rich as married white people, right? Married men and women. Scraping the bottom of poverty is the single woman. The single black woman is the most poor person in the United States. If you factor in any sort of public assistance and have that as a negative, then you start getting into things like the woman has an annual income of something like $2,000 or $3,000. That was released several years ago during the Obama administration again. And that's what you have. Versus the single black father still, even if he didn't have any education whatsoever, still made $30,000 to $40,000 a year and was not eligible for whatever the cutoff line that he was well above. He's like twice as wealthy as the poverty line, right? So he's not poor whatsoever. His children are also not poor, and it didn't matter how many children that he had in the household. Versus the single mom was leading the pack of how poor can a person actually be. Therefore, her children are poor, and even it's a factor of almost like 10. So the single black father is making something like $40,000 a year. She's making something like literally $4,000 a year. I don't know if you've checked, but making $4,000 a year is terrible. Even if the government is paying all of your bills, and let's say that that $4,000 is actually going to pay for anything that's not a bill, because your bills are taken care of, right? Still, $4,000 is not a lot of money. And that's no bills, no power, electricity, rent, none of that sort of stuff. And food. So you're going to get food for free too, right? So then $4,000 goes to pay off your cell phone, any sort of entertainment. I'm sure there's a lot of you sitting there who are saying, I pay more for my entertainment in a month. Some of you, that will cover $4,000, right? Some of you. Not all of you, but... And then others would say $4,000 would keep me entertained and going out to eat for about 2 months, realistically. Why a much bigger pack of you would be covered, $4,000 would cover 2 months. And I believe everybody listening to me, because I doubt any of those people can listen to me and afford to have internet. So 3 months, $4,000 to cover all of your extra expenses, other than your bills and your regular food. So if you get ice cream and stuff like that, that wouldn't be covered in the government assistance. There are other people who already took this apart. We had other periodicals take it completely apart. It's just that it's unfortunate that this lady made this opinion piece and said that she did research. You don't do research in a bucket, right? You have to look around at other stuff. Well, what did the other people find? How is it that my data is completely different from everybody else's data? I am going to assume that Christina Cross has some biases. Maybe she's a single mom and she wants to promote single motherhood. My father died when I was young, but I don't have any aspirations of promoting single motherhood because I don't think it's a good thing. It's terrible. And also, we need to get away from this idea that single mom, let's blame the dad for everything. it is a high probability, a vast majority of those cases, where the woman ran off the dude. It's no longer the 1920s where it was hard to get work, and so the dude went out and just left everybody there, hoping that they would be taken care of, which they were, right? Which they were. In the 1920s, if the dude left, the family would be taken care of. And you have actual letters from 1920s talking about, this is why I left. I knew that if I left and disappeared out of your life, leaving you with the kids, however hard it was, that you would be taken care of and the kids would be taken care of without me around. And it would be better than had I stayed. Now, you all can have your Hallmark moment and talk about, oh, it would be better if he actually stayed because then I didn't grow up with a dad. Well, here's the reality of that situation. Financially, you were better. Financially, that means that your education is going to be better and your life expectancy is going to be better without a poor dad around who served as a sucking point to the family income, because when you have a man around, the government doesn't want to help you. The government does not want to encourage actual good families, two-parent households. The government does not want to encourage that. Fast forward 40 years after that, or 50 years after that, dad doesn't have to be around. Mom is going to run the dad off because mom is going to say, you're broke, I'm broke, we can't have two broke people, and then we have two kids, get out the house, I can handle this. And however, she says that might be terrible, but it's the reality. That's the reality of that we live in now. If she does any sort of, if she's of any sort of wisdom, I told you that it's almost magical that when two black people get married, they immediately jump out of poverty. Well, those people don't, those women don't ever stay around long enough to, have that even happen. The overnight doesn't happen overnight. It happens over the course of a month, 6 months, a year, something like that, right? It is far better for them to stay together than it is for them to be separate. And even with government assistance, a single woman, period, is broke. I don't want to get into the politics of that, but that's the reality. A single woman is broke. A divorced woman with child support and alimony goes broke in the United States 60% of the 75% of the time. She's homeless 30% of that time. Because for whatever reason, she cannot balance household expenses and all the other expenses. These are for women who do not get government assistance at all, right? They've got alimony, they've got child support. They're not on government assistance at all. And in fact, a lot of the expenses for the courts comes out of their pocket. They don't understand that. A single woman in the United States is more than likely broke. It is the rare woman that gets a good job, and when I say good, I mean like engineer. I'm not talking about she's a social worker or something stupid like that. I'm talking about a good job. Something that pays $60,000 a year or better, right? That she has a good job and is on the track for promotion. That rarely actually happens to women. Although that's supposed to be the reality that we live in now, right? Right? That's what they say on the news all the time, right? And when you look at the data, the millennial women make more money than the men. So how is it that they make more money, but they are busting out the charts of poverty and homelessness, especially in California? I did research. I didn't make that video though. Thank you all for watching. You all have a good day.